President Cyril Ramaphosa will again have to walk the tightrope when he unveils his cabinet, which is expected to feature politicians from other parties. With the ANC only securing 40% of the vote in the recent elections, the dynamics have shifted significantly. This means accommodating the GNU partners will be key, adding complexity to an already challenging task. The ANC's alliance partners also expect some form of representation, despite prior commitments by the president to decrease the size of cabinet. Economists are also calling on the president to prioritise economic growth when selecting his new cabinet. Let's now speak to Nedlac Community Constituency Head Thulani Tshefuta. Thulani, appreciate your time. I suppose let's go back a little bit and ask about the perception or the significance of forming a government of national unity in the current political landscape of South Africa.
Good afternoon, Hugo, and to the viewers of Newzroom Afrika, and thank you very much for this opportunity. The greatest alignment for us is that you are actually taking me out of a meeting that is convened by the civil society component of Nedlac, as you said in your introduction, which is deliberating on the very same issues. And the spirit of the meeting that we are in, as in now, appreciates the fact that there could have been many other options of how this government is formed after the 2024 national and provincial elections. And we are also in favor of this notion of a government of national unity above narrow and small party political coalitions. The experience we have of coalitions, at least in local governments, shows that coalitions do not work. What happens in coalitions is that the narrow party political interests take precedence and preponderance over the needs and the aspirations of the people. And therefore, they even do not hold each other accountable in conditions of coalitions. They massage each other's egos at the expense of the people. And we believe that an all-inclusive government of national unity will be used as checks, as balances in instances where they must hold each other accountable. Hold each other accountable on the basis of a national minimum program that they would have agreed on well in advance, because we believe on the dictum that the structure follows the strategy. So you start by defining the national program of action and then say, which structure are we going to put in place? Which structure of the cabinet will be fit to drive the purpose of this national program? Who are the individuals who possess the necessary skills and capacities to implement this national program that we agree on? And on those bases, we believe that the platform of the government of national unity must then be used to build cohesion, not only amongst the political parties that are involved, but starting with them, building into all of those that are involved in parliament and other players that are outside parliament and government itself, including civil society.
Thulani, you raised some interesting points, which potentially are key challenges for President Ramaphosa as he tries to find that balancing act for the various interests of various coalition partners. And I suppose one of those challenges, which is slightly different from a coalition, is that coalition can be limited to 2 or 3 parties. But the interests in this government of national unity encompasses many political parties that have now appended their signatures to the GNU. How does President Cyril Ramaphosa balance that?
The one way in which President Ramaphosa can bring about a balance on those is for every political party that joins the government of national unity to know substantively what is it that they are joining. What is the binding minimum program that they agree to pursue? And when they do that, they must start by asking a question as to what are the most pressing challenges that South Africans are confronted with which we are positioning the government of national unity to respond to those. And ultimately, we believe then that once that is resolved, political parties will be held accountable against that standard. Political parties must never be allowed to throw in the names of people that they believe This is our leader. There is nothing we can do, even if he does not have the necessary capacity to be in the national executive, but he should be because he's our leader. There should be a specific profile that political parties submit to say, we believe that this person that we're submitting to be considered as part of the national executive of government can have this contribution to make because they have these qualifications, they have these capacities, they have these skills, they have these experiences, and therefore they can lay a hand to be part of the solution in addressing the challenges that South Africans are confronted with, not to be a representative of a political party in the platform of government of national unity. And so the leverage that all political parties have already agreed on, that there are preferences that the president will have to make, the president must make the best use of that. There are powers constitutionally that are still bestowed on the president and the president alone. The president must never, for a second, let go of those powers for political expedience of massaging the egos of the partners and the parties that are in the government of national unity. Because ultimately, those accountabilities will rest with him. He will have to account, not the government of national unity.
Now, you talk about the president potentially massaging the egos of partners in the GNU. What about egos of those individuals within his own political party? And let's consider the ANC's historically tight grip on key ministries. How do you think the party will approach the allocation of critical portfolios such as defence, finance, police? I mean, we look at those numbers in crime that continue to go up. Is it Bheki Cele likely to feature? Is that a question that will be top of mind for President Cyril Ramaphosa?
What we know for now, for example, if you make the example of former Minister Bheki Cele being in police, he's already out of the National Assembly, and we know that we cannot rule anyone out because the president can still appoint people outside the National Assembly up to a maximum of 2 into his national executive. But what I think is important for consideration by the president, in line with what I just asserted now, is that he must look into the mammoth task that each portfolio is confronted with. He must see what are the minimum tasks that must be pursued by that portfolio as an area of responsibility. His next question must be, who is the best suitable cadre who can drive this program? Who has the necessary skills and expertise and capacity to can drive and implement the program that we have for community safety, for example, if we talk about the policing function. And that consideration, there are a lot of balancing acts that the president will have to do, even intra-ANC itself. There are considerations for the seniority of people in the political parties. That must be balanced together with gender. That must be balanced together with age. That must be taking into account the capacity and the skills that people have. That must take into account which of these portfolios may actually be given to other parties outside the ANC. And that for us brings us to a point that we actually even do not believe that this may be the moment for the president to say he is reducing the cabinet. This is the moment where parties that have raised their hand to be part of the solution through the government of national unity must make their expectations known, as in their demands. But their demands must be matched by the equal level of responsibility where they say, as parties and partners to this government of national unity, this is the responsibility that we take fully. These are the obligations that we shoulder as a political party. And this is the contribution that we're going to make. Political parties cannot only be engaged on the basis of which position do you want, without even saying what is it that we're going to do with that position. They must say what they want, but equally, what is their obligation and responsibility, and what will be their contribution in resolving the challenges of South Africans. So
obviously you've got the larger political parties, those that have more seats, for instance, in Parliament versus those that have fewer seats. So just give us an idea of what the conversations are like in coming up with this future cabinet. How much consultation is taking place between President Cyril Ramaphosa and the various parties in this GNU in coming up with a potential cabinet? Are people presenting their CVs? Are people presenting the portfolios that think that they can run? What is that conversation like? Is there trading that is going on in trying to come up with a cabinet?
Well, we are not inside parties to the conversations that are taking place, but what is already public knowledge is the fact that the president has already engaged with the senior leadership and the officials of the ANC. The president is already engaging with other political parties with a strong mandate and backing from his own political party. The president is engaging with all political parties that have already signed to be part of the government of national unity. And I think the levels of engagement now have dropped a little bit lower than the high level strategic reflections they had earlier on the statement of intent. Now they are talking the structures in terms of the structure of government, the portfolios that could be considered to be in place there, and what may also happen in terms of what a ministry is considered for which political party. Must be acknowledged that the political parties themselves still appreciate that constitutionally that is the responsibility of the president. And so that horse trading, maybe political parties saying we feel strongly that we may have a contribution to make in this portfolio or that portfolio. When you take your final decision, please consider this. When the president engages with political parties as the president of the Republic of South Africa with the view of forming a government, it is a completely different ball game than when the leadership of the ANC is engaging to say what should be the principles for the overall formation, what are the percentages of allocations of these portfolios, because the president is engaging with the view of consultation to make up his mind and the final determination of who do I appoint into which responsibility or portfolio. Because later on, the president cannot come back and say, I appointed Thulani Tshefuta, and Thulani Tshefuta was given to me by that political party, and when things do not go accordingly, we hold that political party accountable. No, it cannot be. He must still take full responsibility and accountability, and the buck will stop with him. And as civil society, we actually appreciate the fact that political parties at this stage still understand and appreciate the fact that the government of national unity does not mean government protocols will no longer exist. The form of executive that we have will still follow its governance protocols and procedures.
Thulani, coming to my final question, how might the dynamics of a GNU affect the opposition party's traditional roles in holding the government accountable? Because only months ago, the DA was the official opposition. Now they aren't.
Everyone who has been elected and given a responsibility to be in parliament has a role to play in this. And whether they were to be or not to be part of the government of national unity, each and every public representative that has been elected would have a responsibility to play. And that is a responsibility that must never be diluted by where the political parties are now sitting. Where parties are part of the government of national unity, they must never let their guard down because now they are part of government of national unity and they do not hold other political parties accountable. If political parties that are part of the government of national unity start by not holding each other accountable, they will erode all confidence of the people in the entire notion of government of national unity, because they must start to show that the interest is viewed through the lens of the aspirations of the people of South Africa. So when an individual that is given a responsibility does not rise to occasion, it is them who must first and foremost say, but you are becoming a weakest link in the chain. Of those that are already in parliament, they must already up their game. They must stop with the gimmicks. They must stop playing games. They must hold the government accountable, not on the basis of what their parties stand for, but on the basis of the mandates given to them and what are the aspirations of the people of South Africa. You may be elected on the basis of what you stand for as a political party, but once given that responsibility into being part of the legislature, you now begin to represent even those that did not elect you. And in that way, you show cause that you take your own responsibilities very seriously. And we can only believe that now it will be a period where accountability is taken serious. Of those who will hold government accountable, they must take their work serious. The science of monitoring and evaluation must begin to be elevated to levels where even that form of accountability is evidence-based. As civil society, we are going to make a call that Parliament must build stronger relations now with civil society in taking oversight on what government does. Civil society must play a more incremental role in terms of informing what legislation emerges. Because if that is not done, political parties will massage each other's egos. They will not want to deal with areas of disagreement. They will want to find and paper over cracks and agree on what they agree on, although those may not be the most pressing needs of South Africans. And so civil society must play a more increased role in parliamentary processes. The same with government. We are going to make a call for the establishment of a presidential working group with civil society. We are going to use that presidential working group first and foremost to make input on the national minimum program that government must be pursuing, or what may be the national strategic framework for the next 5 years. We are going to use that presidential working group to hold government accountable of that program.
Thulani, looks like we've run short.
To make sure that we also define the role that must be played by civil society.